The Teacher's Memory, A Comprehensive Journey, 1914 to 1919. Welcome. Before we begin our long journey through the corridors of time, I want you to make sure you are completely comfortable. Adjust your pillows. Feel the weight of your heavy blanket pressing gently against you. Let your shoulders drop and release the tension in your jaw. Take a deep, slow breath in through your nose. Hold it for a moment and let it out with a sigh. Sit down, my dear student. Put aside your books, your modern worries, and the fast-paced world outside. You asked me about the Great War, but you didn't ask for dry dates or cold maps. You asked to feel the pulse of history, to understand what it was like when the world we knew began to tilt. Close your eyes now. Hear the distant, muffled chime of Big Ben echoing through the fog. We are going back. Pause 10 seconds. In the summer of 1914, London was bathed in a strange golden haze. I remember it as the longest, warmest summer of my life. I was living in a small, quiet room in Bloomsbury then, a room filled with the scent of old parchment, dried ink, and the afternoon tea that had gone cold on my desk. Outside, the sound of horse-drawn carriages on the cobblestones was a rhythmic lullaby. On June 28th, a spark was lit in a far-off city called Sarajevo. Archduke Franz Ferdinand was assassinated. In London, we read about it in the morning papers, but the sun was still shining so brightly. I stood before my chalkboard, teaching my students about the delicate balance of power, the Triple Entente, and the Triple Alliance. To us, it felt like a giant intellectual game of chess played by kings in distant palaces. We didn't realize that a single carriage ride in the Balkans would end our world of yesterday. As July faded, the air in the city grew heavy, not with heat, but with an unspoken tension. August 4th, 1914, at 11 p.m. I stood near Whitehall among a crowd that was perfectly, hauntingly silent. The silence was so deep you could hear the flickering of the gas lamps. We were at war. The next morning, the world looked the same, but the spirit had shifted. I saw my own students, boys who had just been struggling with their Latin verbs, standing in long, proud lines at the recruiting stations. They were laughing and smoking, convinced it would all be over by Christmas. I wanted to reach out, to tell them that history is a slow, grinding machine, but I only watched them march toward Victoria Station. The sound of their boots, clack, 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 is a rhythm that still echoes in the quiet corners of this old schoolhouse. Pause 10 seconds. Now, adjust your blanket once more as we enter the gray, misty morning of 1915. In my classroom, the maps on the wall began to change. The war was no longer a matter of moving armies. It had become a wound in the earth that would not heal. From the cold North Sea down to the Swiss border, a jagged line was carved into the soil. The trenches. Millions of men were now living underground like creatures of the earth in a world made of mud and timber. My former students wrote to me from the front. They didn't write of glory. They wrote of the sticky, chocolate-colored mud of Flanders that swallowed boots and spirits alike. They wrote of the smell of wet wool and the flickering light of candles in dugouts. 1915 was also the year we heard the exotic, distant name of Gallipoli. I sat in my study late at night, tracing the map of the Dardanelles with my finger. I thought of the sheer, sun-baked cliffs and the turquoise water, a landscape so different from our soft London fog. I imagined the heat, the dust, and the bravery of men far from home. Back in London, the war finally looked down from the clouds. I will never forget the first Zeppelin raid. It was a calm spring night when the street lamps were suddenly extinguished. The city became a dark silhouette. Then came that sound, a low, rhythmic thrumming. Thrum, thrum, thrum. It was like a giant heart beating in the sky. I looked up and saw a silver cigar, ghostly and silent, drifting over the rooftops of Chelsea like a prehistoric fish in a dark, midnight ocean. We realized then that even the stars were no longer neutral. Pause 10 seconds. Then came 1916, the year the earth itself seemed to groan, the year of the Somme. I remember standing by my chalkboard, trying to explain to the younger children what a war of attrition meant. It is a heavy, tired phrase. It means a world where victory is measured in inches. On the 1st of July, while the birds in my garden were singing their morning songs, the earth in France was shaking with 1,000 thunderclaps. But 1916 also brought the Iron Giants. We heard whispers of secret machines called tanks. When their pictures finally appeared, they looked like clumsy monsters from a Jules Verne novel, covered in metal scales and breathing smoke. They were built to crawl over the craters, to break the wire, and to bring the boys back to us. In the quiet kitchens of London, the sound of knitting needles, click, 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 became the steady heartbeat of the home front. Women sat by the hearth, knitting socks of thick gray wool, their hands moving in a silent prayer for the men in the mud. By 1917, the world was shaking with exhaustion. Russia was in the grip of a great revolution, and the giant of the West, America, was finally beginning to stir. But here in London, it was the year of the deep blackout. The city was wrapped in a velvet darkness so thick that you could see the Milky Way from the center of Piccadilly Circus. The stars became our only companions in the night. I remember the sugar cards and the long, patient queues in the morning mist. We learned to walk in the pitch black, counting our steps to the front door. 1, 2, 3. We were tired, my student, so very tired. But in that darkness, we found a new kind of community. We shared what little we had, huddled around small fires, waiting for the dawn of a new year. Then finally, the guns fell silent in November 1918. But it was 1919 when the world truly tried to wake up from its long, fevered dream. I took down the war maps for the last time. The paper yellowed and torn at the edges. In the Hall of Mirrors at Versailles, the map of the world was being redrawn by men in silk hats. Old empires, names that had lasted for centuries, vanished into the dust of history. London in 1919 was a place of deep reflection. The street lamps stayed on all night, their yellow light dancing on the wet, rain-washed pavement of the embankment. We watched the first planes cross the Atlantic, realizing that the sky was now a bridge, not a battlefield. The Thames River is calm now, flowing silently under the bridges, carrying the memories of the city out to the sea. The ink on my desk is dry. The heavy history books are back on their shelves, resting in the shadows. Imagine walking by the river in the soft blue evening of 1919. The war is a memory, a story told by an old teacher. The world is at peace. You are safe in this moment. You are home. The history is written. The lessons are over, and now it is time for you to let go. Sleep now, my dear student. Let the echoes of the boots and the thrumming of the engines fade into the perfect silence of the night. The fog is rolling in, soft and protective. Sleep, sleep into the long, peaceful reaches of time.